How to make a request to a narcissist. The most effective approach when dealing with our kind is go so, namely get out, stay out, and do so through the imposition of a robust no-contact regime. The value of achieving this means it is often worth making certain sacrifices in terms of having that final word. Listen to the last word, for instance. Writing off money owed to you, kissing goodbye to that gay unicorn sculpture, or even hoping for some kind of explanation as to what has just happened. The benefit of achieving no contact will often outweigh trying to address those outstanding matters. Keep in mind that not only do our kind not provide you with closure, listen to closure denied, we will not give you answers, and we also use any interaction to future fake and give you false hope. We also utilize outstanding issues, money, possessions, payment of bills, etc., as the maintenance of ever-presence and as Hoover triggers. The attempt at a successful no-contact regime is littered with the residue of the narcissistic entanglement. Nevertheless, there may be occasions where you feel it is necessary to make a request of our kind in order to seek some kind of outcome or resolution. This requires careful evaluation to determine whether it is a step worth taking, and if it is, how should this be effected? Here are some do's and don'ts in respect of how to make a request to a narcissist. Keep in mind that these points are not standalone, and they impact on one another in terms of the overall outcome that can be achieved. Number 1. The first significant point is to take heed of the very title of this article, make a request. Although it may sicken you to have to be polite and civil to us after the way you have been treated, if you make a demand, you will get nowhere. In accordance with our need to always maintain control and the upper hand, making a demand of us is a proverbial red rag to the bull. Dependent on how this demand is made, it will either be challenge fuel, so expect us to provoke you to get more delicious negative fuel, and we will respond in an intransigent, obnoxious, and obstructive manner to your demand, or it will wound us, and thus you will ignite our fury. This latter response will mean your demand will be dead in the water, and you will be subjected to either heated or cold fury. No matter how much it pains you, do not use phrases such as, "You have to do this," "You must pay me immediately," "If you do not do this, then." Instead, you should utilize phrases including, "It would be appreciated if you could," "I hope that you might be able to," "Would you be so kind as to?" We balk at being commanded to do anything, since we are the doers and not the done to. No matter how right you may feel about making a demand, no matter how justified or entitled you may be, resist the temptation to couch your interaction with us in such terms. 2. Timing. This is crucial in terms of maximizing the potential for success with your request. Naturally, any request made to us during the relevant golden period is highly likely going to meet with success, but that is of little help to you. You are not likely to be asking for your antique banker's lamp back during the golden period, or requesting that the utilities bills be settled promptly. Your request is usually going to be made post-escape or post-disengagement, and it is in those instances that the issue of timing becomes paramount. A. Do not bother with making any request in the immediacy of your escape from our kind. By immediacy, I mean the first month post-escape. Your escape will have meant that you have been deemed to be a traitor. If you make the request during the initial Grand Hoover, which is our concerted attempt to pull you back under our control and into the formal relationship again, then it will only be seen as further evidence of your treachery. If you want money to be repaid, that not only signals to us that you have no interest in coming back to us, but making such a request will either be challenge fuel or wounding. If you make your request following an unsuccessful initial Grand Hoover, if we do not have a replacement intimate partner primary source, assuming that was the position that you held, then your request will in all likelihood be agreed to on the basis of you returning to us. Do not fall for it. This will be a future fake. We will agree to returning those items if you come and see us, so we can apply more pressure to draw fuel from you, etc. But the return of the possessions will not happen. B. If you become aware that we are pursuing a new intimate partner primary source interest, and that this is in the early stages, first few weeks of the pursuit, then do not bother making your request. You will remain painted black, seen as a traitor, and also we will be concerned that you are trying to make us look bad in front of this new prospect. Furthermore, our inherent wariness will mean that we will treat the request with suspicion, regarding it as a Trojan horse for the purpose of you trying to inveigle your way back in to wreak havoc on our new golden period. C. If we have an embedded IPPS and all is sunny in paradise in Narc world, this is your optimum opportunity to acquire a favourable outcome. The reason for this is that we will be far more secure in our golden period with this new IPPS. Furthermore, the maintenance of the facade of us being kind, decent and honourable will be of importance, and whilst there is no absolute guarantee that we will acquiesce to your request, your chances are much greater. We want to be seen as magnanimous, that we bear no grudge, that we have moved on, and we want to show the new IPPS and members of the coterie that we can exhibit benevolence. Of course, there will be limits to this largesse, but by approaching us at this time and adopting the other points in this article, then you will increase your chances significantly of a favourable outcome. D. If we have disengaged from you, you have been painted black also. In all likelihood, there will be a new IPPS, and therefore, in terms of timing, you should pay heed to the points that I have just illustrated. E. If we have disengaged from you and there is no IPPS, as far as you can tell, there will be no point making the request, because you will remain black, because we have chosen to disengage from you with no IPPS to bolt on. Such a step may well have been taken as a consequence of total treachery on your part, exposure, or massive wounding. Therefore, any request made at this time will be met with being ignored at best and horrendous line hoovers at worst. Timing is most important, and you need to be able to recognize where we are likely to be at with regards to our dynamic with other appliances before making your request. 3. Do not make the request in person. No matter how hard you try to remain neutral, by appearing in person before us, you will provide us with fuel through what you say, how you say it, the tone of your voice, your facial expression, the look in your eyes, and so forth. This means that we will give the appearance of considering your request, but all we will focus on is either gaining more fuel from you or pulling you back into the formal relationship, dependent on when this happens. Even if you make the request when we are at 2C that I've described, your appearance in person will defeat the request because we see the opportunity to gain fuel from you, either positively by agreeing and future faking you so you keep revisiting us, or by provoking you to give negative fuel. It's far more important than looking good for the appearance of the facade. Keep in mind also that your emotional thinking is far more likely to govern your responses if you are with us in person. And this will result in your providing automatic responses, which will go against your aims. 4. Do not make the request by telephone. Although the quantity of fuel will not be as great as if you made the request in person, there is still a decent quantity to be obtained, and we will seize on that opportunity rather than focus on making us look good by agreeing to your request. By speaking to us, you are again more likely to give us fuel, and also to be governed by emotional thinking as we goad you, be it for positive or negative fuel. 5. Do not make the request by text message or social media message. You will end up clipping your message in a way which will make it appear like a demand, which is also easier for us to ignore. 6. Always make the request in writing, and that means either in an email or a handwritten letter. Why do this? A. Evidence. Your request is not guaranteed to meet with success, but where it eventually leads to, perhaps police involvement or through the courts, will be boosted considerably by having this evidence in place and not having to rely on the less favourable and less reliable oral evidence. B. Best front shown. You will be far more considered, logical and restrained in a written request than one made in person or by telephone. Keep in mind that some of our kind will film record you and use edited highlights to discredit you when you become angry, frustrated or exasperated. C. You will be able to take your time in composing the most effective request. You'll be able to reflect on it, remove as much fuel as possible, avoid anything which could be construed as demanding or wounding, and thus you are maximizing your effectiveness. D. Even if you do provide some fuel, the written word conveys the lowest quantity by reason of the absence of hearing the tone, seeing the facial expressions, and so forth. The written word may be emotive, but it is low in terms of the quantity of fuel and may even just be thought fuel based on how we consider you to have been when you wrote the correspondence. E. Building a paper trail. If the request is not agreed to, and you therefore have to use a formal channel, complaint to a body, commence litigation, or use the police, for instance, the fact you have created a paper trail will move matters heavily in your favour. 7. Never plead, cajole, or threaten. This will cause us to sense there is fuel in the offing and or wound us, and therefore we will focus on the fuel, or healing the wound you have caused, and your request will be forgotten about as we go off on a different frolic. 8. Provide some flattery, but do not go overboard. It is acceptable to write in terms such as, I know you are a reasonable person, or I know you are the right person to assist with this matter, or I know you can resolve this for both our benefits. Note the use of I know and not I think. Using I know is a strong assertion and leaves no room for doubt. However, do not become obsequious or over the top in your praise or compliments, because this will either cause us to sense more fuel is on offer, or we will regard you as taking the piss, and this will be challenge fuel. In either case, this causes us to focus on the fuel and or asserting superiority, and thus your request will be lost in this process. 9. Make the request once and once only. If you do not get a response or the response is rejection, do not go back. All we will do is future fake and provoke you. If the request does not meet with success, then you have made your point and you should then proceed to escalate the matter through a formal channel. Don't keep chipping away asking, did you get the email? Put a delivered and read receipt on it. Don't demand that the request is answered. See the point about demands made earlier. 10. If the execution of the request requires the delivery of property, the return of possessions and such like, politely request that this is done through a third party and specify when they will attend to collect goods or deliver property, etc. With regard to money, you can arrange for this either to be paid into a bank account or, if it is cash, have it handed to the trustworthy third party. Do not suggest that you will meet with us to execute the request. This will cause us to see an opportunity to gain fuel and deny the request or string it out and delay. 11. Ensure the request is clear. Do not suggest any meeting to discuss it. Do not invite us to advance counter-proposals. Do not fudge the issue. Identify what needs to be done. Make the request in a clear fashion, noting precisely what should be provided, for example, when and how. Invite a third party to review the written request so it reads clearly and there is no scope for misunderstanding. We will exploit a lack of clarity in order to contact you in person and thus draw fuel, etc. 12. Politely request that the response from us is sent to a third party. You should always make the request. Do not do so by proxy, as this will insult us and wound us that you could not even be bothered to do us the courtesy of asking us to begin with, and your request will immediately fail. However, detail in the request that performance of the request and confirmation should be provided to a third party who you can trust. This will deny us the opportunity to try to hoover you and dodge the purpose of the request. It also means that you may also maximize your prospects of a successful outcome when you are painted black still. If we do not have to deal with you when there is a concern that you might, for example, interfere in the blossoming seduction of a new IPPS or wound us, then this is likely to improve the chances of it happening. 13. Identify the school of narcissists you are dealing with and tailor the request accordingly. The lesser will have lower energy levels and risk ignition of fury more readily. Therefore, look at ways of making his compliance easy. Send someone to collect rather than wanting him to come and deliver, for example. The mid-ranger will want to be seen as the good egg, so factor that into how you phrase your request. The greater will be above such trivialities, and you may benefit from suggesting that one of the greater's people liaises with one of your people to execute the request. 14. Do not offer a reward or incentive for compliance. This will then become the focus of our response, and this will be sought without acceding to the request. If you show you are willing to give us something in return, which we regard as being entitled to anyway, we will focus on that instead. 15. Seek my assistance with a bespoke solution to the relevant situation. All factors are considered and taken into account, and I can also assist you with the drafting of a request which is far more likely to succeed. If the request does not work, do not be disheartened. Instead, if you have followed this video, you will have avoided giving much fuel, you will have not made a show of yourself, You will have breached no contact, of course, but not in a way that is going to cause you huge problems. And you will have established a constructive platform which will allow you to, if you wish, to escalate the matter in order to bring about compliance through an alternative method.